Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 46 of Titanic Talks, and it is Wednesday, February 12th, 2024, and it is your main man's birthday. Round of applause for myself there. I made it 37 times around the planet 37 years ago in the year 1987, I was brought into this world, and I gotta say, feeling pretty good. It's gonna be hard to beat 36. There's that study that they asked a bunch of people in retirement homes what's the best age to be, and unequivocally, the elder folks who were asked that question said 36. So hopefully 37 is just as good, if not better. And I got to say 36 was a great year. And thank you for the wonderful messages from people. Very kind, very sweet. And it's so nice to hear from your friends. You know, the older you get, the less, I guess, banter. I guess when you move halfway across the country as well, you kind of hear from your friends less, which I think is normal. But you know, people get busy, and I used to kind of get a little sad about that. And then I realized, hey, everyone's busy. And if you're someone like me, and almost all of your friends are musicians who tour the world or produce, very hardworking people, a lot of people in the television and film world. And so anytime I get into those thoughts, I have to remind myself, everyone's busy. The world doesn't revolve around you, Titanic Sinclair. And so when your birthday comes and you get the messages, it's nice. So thank you to everyone for the very kind messages. I'm feeling good. It's a beautiful day here in Texas, and I'm wearing a new shirt. Did I get it for my birthday? I did. Chelsea graced me this morning with wonderful gifts and a chai tea. So we're drinking a chai tea, and you know I've got an HEB lemon sparkling water as well. Let's take a little quick review. It's good. I used to drink chai tea all the time. And I used to be hungover all the time. And I'm feeling really good lately. Living life, well, as Chelsea says, raw dogging life. And, you know, it's, I never thought I'd be one of those dudes. I don't know how, I don't want to become one, like, no offense to sober people. Lots of my friends are sober, and it's been cool talking to a lot of those friends as I'm seeing it as I'm almost like testing myself. I was a vegetarian for a very long time. I don't think I've ever talked about this. I was a vegetarian for almost 6 years. I would have been 15. And I read a book called Fast Food Nation. And then I read The Omnivore's Dilemma. And I, at 15 years old, going on 16, thought, okay, I wonder, because, you know, you get a car when you're 16. My first car was a 1991 Geo Storm. It was a manual transmission, and I loved that car. And my dad sold it to me. I did not get a free car, and that's my dad in a nutshell. And I'm glad he did. It was I think I'm going to do the same. He gave me a really good deal. But it was the principle, right? And I remember thinking, oh, I can go do anything I want and buy anything I want. Though I didn't really have a lot of money. I had a paper route at the time. Well, no, I would have just started working at the movie theater. You were supposed to be 16 to work at the movie theater, but my sister, her friend, was one of the managers. And I begged and pleaded, and that was my favorite job I ever had. If you're a longtime viewer here, you know how much I loved working at the movie theater. I love going to the movie theater. And this week we went to the rodeo. And what does that have to do with the movie theater? Popcorn. I make a lot of popcorn at home. Not as good as when it's from a popper. I have all the same stuff. What's the yellow salt that they use? It's yellow popcorn salt, and it is called Flavacol. Is there 50,000 milligrams of sodium per tablespoon? Yep. Do I use peanut oil to pop it? Yeah. They don't do that in the movie theaters anymore because allergies. But back in the day when I worked there, that would have been 2001 when I started working there, they used peanut oil. And I remember we transitioned and it didn't taste as good. And I pop it on the stove. I've been doing it for years, and it's just not the same. In a popper, I think it's got to be sitting for a while under the heat lamp. I use the same proportions, but hey, you know what? It made the rodeo great. Ate a corn dog. Well, it was a Korean corn dog, which I was very surprised to see in the... this was in San Antonio, Texas. And I've been to several. It was not my first rodeo, right? As the saying goes. And I had been to several local, kind of like more county fair / rodeos. And in Central and South Texas, you'll see a lot of those. It's one of my favorite things to do, actually. Talk about fish out of water, but I like to acclimate. I've got the hats and the Wranglers. I like to think I blend in, and I don't. But we have a great time, and I had no idea how big this was. They said 1 million people visit that one rodeo in particular. And my favorite part was the military reenactment spectacle that they had. You kind of had to be there to see it. Maybe I'll put a clip here, and maybe you'll get an idea of how insane it was. And I love when they always have the little kids come out and they ride the sheep. And, they're wearing pads and helmets and everything. It's safe for them. Mutton busting, I think it's called. Is that mutton busting? Mutton busting is the crowd favorite. Little buckaroos cowboy up and hold on for 6 exciting seconds. And I think there were about 20 little kiddos who did the mutton busting at the recent rodeo. And I think it was about 6 seconds total for all 20 for them hanging on. It's adorable. It's one of the funniest things. Just go after this video, maybe open a new tab, and watch a mutton busting compilation. You're going to be smiling. It's fun. It's funny. Silly. And there we have it. The rodeo was a great time. Korean corn dog. It was basically a giant mozzarella stick. And it was massive. Did I feel a little bit insecure inserting that into my mouth? Yes. And halfway through, I looked over at Chelsea and said, "Is there a dog in this corn dog?" And there was. It was just way down past a long, arduous, but delicious amount of fried bread and cheese. And they put cinnamon sugar on it. Sweet and savory, if you know anything about me. Sweet and savory. That is the move. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. Hopefully you didn't forget. Here's your reminder to go get some flowers, some chocolates, perhaps some Ferrero Rochers. I think that's how you pronounce it. Those are the best candies. Just, why don't you get that special someone the best of the best this year? I remember one time I was making a documentary. I was living in Chicago, making a documentary for a mixed martial arts heavyweight champion named Andrei Arlovsky. Great guy. He was from Belarus. And I spent about a year with him. We had Thanksgiving dinner. It was wonderful. And I'm 6'1". He must have been 7 feet tall, maybe more. He was huge. And, his, him and his whole crew was like this very awesome, wonderful family. His manager was his cousin, and all. It was a family unit. So we did like Thanksgiving, and they did pretty much everything together. And they thought it was really funny to get me hammered. The way they drink vodka over in Eastern Europe, very, very good. I don't drink it anymore, but if I was to choose any, I guess, hard spirit, it would be whatever it was they were drinking. Very smooth, and you would chase it. In Texas, they chase it with a pickleback. Didn't know what that was until I moved to Texas. Shot of pickle juice, basically. Great hangover remedy, by the way, for those of you who drink. And apparently in Eastern Europe, they chase it with cured meat and pickled, like those little tiny pickles, if I remember correctly, pickled vegetables. And it takes that burn or that edge off, although the stuff they were drinking didn't have much burn. What does this have to do with Ferrero Rocher candies? One time they sent me home. I was supposed to be filming too, but that would only last so long, and then everyone would get into the cups, and they would tell me to turn the camera off, and then suddenly I'm hanging out with these guys for hours on end, and they would send me home in a car. I was not driving, like a car service, and I would be absolutely plastered. And they thought it was so hilarious. Maybe it was. But they would send me home with giant bags of those expensive candies, and they would say, "Give this to girlfriend. Your girlfriend, say I'm sorry. Give this to girlfriend. She will be happy." Don't know if that worked, but at the time, hard to say if certain people have ever been happy, right? So chocolates, Valentine's Day, it is what it is. Last night was a Super Bowl. I called it. Weeks ago, I called it. I love that everyone thinks that it's a conspiracy. Ooh, if you haven't heard this, people think it's rigged. So Joe Biden wins the election, I guess, is the idea. Okay, it's fun. Although after watching that game, I could kind of see it. There's some questionable calls going on. Who was I rooting for? Nobody, because the Lions lost. Remember a couple weeks ago I said, I'm betting against the Lions. Should have bet against the Lions earlier because they got the boot. And did I say that the game was going to go into overtime? Chiefs were going to win it in a miraculous victory, and that's exactly what happened, and I should have bet on it. Exactly what happened. And Beyonce is now making country music. Did I call that too? Are you sensing a trend here? No, not mind reader. What do they call those? Nostradamus. That is someone who can predict the future. A little different than a mind reader, I suppose. Sometimes the line gets blurred with those things. Your boy just can see the trends before they happen. Lana Del Rey's country now. Hilarious. Kind of saw that one coming too. She had the Americana thing going on. And I cannot wait to see who goes country next. It's funny to me. 4 years ago, well, almost 5 now, when I wrote the first song for Texas Dream, go stream on Spotify if you haven't heard it yet. That is my effort at a country album. Started recording that in 2019 and released it in Did I release that in 2020 or 2021? I think I started releasing the songs in 2020, perhaps. And that I had the hunch. I think that this is going to be a thing. And all the pop people are going country. Alan Jackson, who maybe is my last week. Speaking of country, we had a special guest here. Is Caleb Lee Hutchinson, and one of my favorite people in the world. What a sweetheart. We've got a yet another side project coming out. I've been recording for it, and it's just been so much fun. And I meant to talk to him about that on pop people going country. Really, it kind of started, the crossover kind of started with Lil Nas X, but he didn't transition into country. He kind of came out with, it was trap music that was sampling Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails. But he had the aesthetic, and then suddenly Diplo started getting into that. I'll give Wesley, my main man, which, if for any reason, Wes, you see this, I wasn't the one poo-pooing on your record label. And Mad Decent was nothing but cool to me, and everyone over there has been super, super cool. But hey, sometimes you're in a project with someone and they want to go to a label that's not owned by Diplo. Probably not a decision I made, but hey, it is what it is, right? And a label can really have an effect on your. They're paying for what you make, so you kind of got to listen to them, and that kind of that's a stressful thing to go through as an artist, because you kind of, before you get to the point of dealing with labels, at that point, I'd worked with 4 labels, 2 majors, 2 indies, and then onto I guess it wasn't an imprint. I think it's technically independent, label 5 that my professional work was involved in. And it comes down to the people. There's this idea when I was a kid playing in bands, it was like pretty much pop punk and metalcore. That was the scene I kind of grew up in. There's a lot of hardcore bands. There's ska bands. We're not even going to go there. We're not going there this episode. You know how I feel about that. Great people, though. Really fun. And we all played shows together. And the dream was to get a record deal. And when you're a kid, you don't even know what that means. I didn't know what that meant until I started working with them. I was like, oh, it's just people in an office building. And the music itself is just it's a commodity. And I think that can be something if I kind of split things into 2 places. There's the performers, and then there are the artists. And I think the performers kind of get it a little bit more. They're like, hey, we're just selling here, baby. So let's make as much money as possible. And hey, the artists over here, I think for the most part, are like, well, I got to pay rent, right? Got to feed myself and my family. So money's great. But maybe we should make sure the music's good before we sell it. That's kind of the distinction that I've seen over the years. So you kind of have to, as a producer, I kind of have to split and be like, is this person an artist or a performer? Are they selling a product, or do they have a product that can be sold? 2 very different things. What does this have to do with the Super Bowl? I'm kind of all over the place. Maybe this chai tea has caffeine in it. Probably a small amount. Super Bowl, though. Pretty silly. Superb owl. That joke was funny, in 2012, right? Beyonce is country, and the year is 2024. How funny. I guess we didn't really talk about the Grammys. Not much to say. Other than Jay-Z. I think the right word would be crybaby. You're up there with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're complaining that Beyonce was snubbed. Let's see who Beyonce was snubbed to. We've got in 2010, Taylor Swift, as well as 2016 for 1989. She lost. What was her? It was her big one, Lemonade. I've heard a bunch of Beyonce songs, and I mean it when I say this. This is my test for if Titanic Sinclair thinks an artist has it. How's that one Beyonce song go? My brain goes to All the Single Ladies. Was that what you picked? That and Drunk in Love. Love. I just think about her yelling love in a way that's not pleasing to my ear. I'm sure she's great. I'm sure she's a great performer. I prefer Destiny's Child. Lemonade lost to Adele. You know? Was that the surfboard one or surfboard? You know, Beyonce's in that. It's always the top tier artists, performers. It's the top tier performers, usually like the highest sellers. And it's a tale as old as time, right? You're going to have the artsy fartsy musicians, saying like, well, myself included, if that wasn't obvious. There's nothing more embarrassing, at least as a professional in the field. There's nothing more embarrassing than seeing a performer trying to be artistic. Does that make sense? We're getting into douchey hipster territory here. I know. But this is episode 46 of this program. I feel like you kind of know what I'm getting at here. It's okay to just sing Say My Name. That's a great song. And that's why I respect the performers who just go for the Max Martin cut. Hey, greatest songwriter of our generation. Can you write me a song? Yes, I'll sing it. But it's when they go off and do and it always has to be with a film that they directed. You know, it's like nobody is impressed by that. If you're directing really thought-provoking, boundary-pushing content, I for once I want to see one of them surprise me. You know, and it's always when it says directed by the artist, it's usually when I turn off the video. But I think it's just like I don't think really any of them want to be directors. Bitter? Yeah, a little bit. Do I think about this all the time? Got too many things to think about. Got a toddler running around. And I got to make sure I'm not the daddy who's just, complaining all the time. Because I got it good. I really do. And at this point in my life, I think I applaud Beyonce for going country. I listened to about 13 seconds of her effort. I saw the commercial. I was like, oh, they're like dropping new music. Let's take a listen. How'd that song go again? If you heard it in your head right now, how'd that song go? I can tell you what Adele's song sounds like. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you. It's kind of like, can you sing the song if you've never played it on Spotify? If you've never actively typed in or, you hear it in the proximity, like that's a hit. Beyonce lost to Beck. Hey, Jay-Z, have you listened to Beck? And have you listened to Beyonce? And she lost to Daft Punk. Random Access Memories. One of the best albums to come out in 25 years. Worst song on that album? We're Up All Night to Get Lucky. We're Up All Night to Get Lucky. Still know it, although I have listened to that album quite a bit. It's just, I don't know, that's just not a good look. You're going to go up and, first of all, you're accepting an award. And Beyonce's won more Grammys than anyone ever. And you're complaining. I just feel like the average person is so sick of hearing millionaires and billionaires complain. It's like, hey, dude, how about thanks? I knew someone once who's on the board of the Grammys. And I was in a session with him once going through the artists, like the selections, and he literally listened to 10 seconds of each song. I was like, yeah, I think this one's the best. Boom. And someone won a Grammy. I had to go do it. Kept it out of the shot this time, though. But it's there, just so you know. So, hey, we'll see next year what happens. Maybe Beyonce will win that Grammy with her country effort. You don't really hear something you never hear. Hey, Beyonce. I can say this as a Texan. Beyonce, my culture is not a costume. Doesn't really have the same flair coming from someone like me. I don't think that's going to catch on. Everyone else is freaking out about the Dark Biden tweet. Hot take here. I remember 4 years of the previous president, and anytime they would post something that pretty obviously was humorous. That's one thing about DJT. Dude's funny. We're just gonna go ahead and say it. I as you know here, I'm not a politically activated person, but I know when someone's funny. And for 4 years, there's nothing funny about being the president. He's the most unpresidential person. And then, well, I mean, Joe Biden, I bet he doesn't even use a phone. Someone on his team, they're really running with this Dark Biden meme. They're selling merch with it. And now today everyone's like, oh, it's obviously a joke. Like, why can't everyone see that it's just a joke? It's like, because you screamed at me for 4 years about, hey, this seems like a joke. So I don't blame the conservatives on that one. I think they can chill out a little bit. Same could be said about the left. How about everyone just chills out? Let's put that on the bingo card for 2024, an election year. Look, I saw a really funny meme. And it was like, I'm unemployed, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm mad at the world. Here's how I think the government should be run. Something like that. I was like, yep. I have no interest in telling people how I think the government should run. And if you're a longtime viewer of this show, you know if I was president of the United States or ruler of the world, Sublime would be illegal. I said I wasn't going to talk about ska. Here we are. Sublime would be illegal. White chocolate would be illegal. Helicopters would be illegal. I'm convinced these devices are definitely listening because last time I talked about this in my feed, and I hadn't Googled it or searched it on YouTube or anything, and I kept getting helicopter crashing compilations and Sublime. Apparently the Bradley, the guy, Sublime guy, his son now is playing with the band. And I kept getting recommendations to watch that. Guess what I didn't watch? That. Was there anything else about Dark Biden I wanted to talk about? We won't dwell on this for too long, but I consider myself a pretty in the middle. I know people hate that. Oh, you're a fence sitter. Yep. Don't like them. Don't like them. People around the middle here that actually pay attention to policy and not people, I tend to get along with. Hey, guess what? Most people are like, that's kind of not into that, but I'm also not into that. Can we meet in the middle? No? Okay. And that's why everyone's screaming at each other. And it's not going to stop until, it's never going to stop. So we'll see what happens. But man, that was rough watching that. I don't know if you saw the clips of your boy Joe, President Joey B. Whatever that press conference was. It was like, 3 days in a row? He was talking about recently meeting with people who have been dead for 20, 30 years. It's like, dude. And like, I don't like using the term gaslighting, but it's like, hey, I have 2 eyes and 2 ears. I see what's happening. I've been around people with Alzheimer's, and let's face it, you get old. It's going to be the same way for me. You get old and your brain just starts fizzling out. You start talking to people or thinking you talk to people who have been dead for almost as long as I've been alive. Saying that as a 37-year-old. And it's just like, dude, can we please get any other option, anything else? That's South Park nailed it years ago. The douche in a turd sandwich. It was a really funny. It was. What was that? Just pulled a Joe. Forgot what I was gonna say. Let's talk about cameras a little bit. My new series is almost ready for episode 1. I think maybe Friday it's going to be done. And to our channel members here, I know I've been promising for a long time, hey, I'm doing these behind the scenes making music things. Finally got it figured out. They're coming. And I have a feeling I'm going to be doing a lot of them because I figured out it wasn't the production I was getting hung up on. It was the camera. And that's why I want to talk about cameras. We're shooting this here on my Blackmagic cinema camera, the Pocket cinema camera. It's the 4K, even though I released these in 1080 because hard drive space. And also everyone's watching them on a phone. I'm sure we'll get 5 people here. Leave a comment or a like if you're not watching this on a phone. Well, leave one anyway. How are you watching this? That's a better way of doing it. How are you watching this? Are you on a phone or are you on a PC? Or shout out to my casting gang here. Are you casting it? Are you watching me on the big screen? That'd be cool. It's a great camera. I recommend. Many people have asked me about camera stuff over the years. I'm a Blackmagic. It's one of the few companies that I shill for happily, and I have nothing to do with them. I've never met them. I recommend Blackmagic cameras to everyone. Particularly, I love the Pocket Cinema camera. I'm shooting my new series and the new channel member series on my OG Pocket Cinema camera, the tiny little baby one. That's the one previous project that I shot all those videos on. It's just an amazing camera. It has its limitations, but there's something about the color profile that's unbelievable. The color science they nailed it on that. It has a Super 16 sensor, which I really like. And what I'm making with it is truly beautiful. I'm tapping into my more cinematography feels. And it's been a while, but I've had an idea of how this camera, it's in a cage and it's all rigged up and everything, right? And so it's just it doesn't, with this camera, I like to have it set up on the sticks, as they say. And I wanted one, even though this is called a Pocket Cinema camera, I wanted one I can literally throw in a bag, and I dust it off. Good old faithful. And she's so good to me. So hopefully Friday that first one will be out. How to Write a Song is the first video in that series. And as far as recording goes, I think the first video here for our channel members, rounds versus flats. We're talking strings, but you'll see why in the video. I usually have flat wound strings on my basses. It's just the sound that I like. It's thumpy. It's vintage E. And it just gives you that Beatlesy, Tame Impala kind of sound that I just love with bass guitar. I tend to not enjoy the round wound sound. That was fun to say. On bass guitar, it's just really not my thing. But when you're making a pop punk emo album with your friend, the flats just weren't cutting it, even with a pick. So I just switch it over, and immediately it's like, yep, that's the sound. And I put them on the P-Bass, kept the flats on the Mustang, because a Mustang's just begging for flats. And I'm just really jazzed about that. Hey, it is what it is. Definitely not as comfortable to play, but I would recommend, hello, buddy. Hello. Do you have a delicious yogurt? My tiny man is saying hello. Hi. And he has a delicious yogurt. That's a recent discovery, by the way. Switched over from the squeezies. Switched over from the apple. What do we call those? Well, we call them squeezies, don't we, buddy? It's not apple juice. Why can't it apple sauce? Still early over here. February 12th, 2024. But that's what we're doing with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. It's so fun. And so one of the other episodes that we're going to get into, apparently what YouTube is doing now with channel member videos. If you're not a member, click join. You get access to, there's hours and hours and hours and hours of videos in the back catalog with the new ones coming. But what I've seen them kind of do now is they're starting to give a little snippet of the paywalled content. And then they're like, if you want to watch the rest, have you seen those? I've seen a couple channels that I watch have been kind of doing that. So another one I want to do is about power grades. I think it's going to be a little more like in the weeds kind of stuff. Hello? Hi. I think it's going to be a lot more kind of in the weeds stuff, perhaps. But that's the kind of thing. Honestly, if I'm on, I do quite a bit of like consultation calls, things of that nature, and it's the stuff that I would cover on like a consultation call. Um, a power grade being like kind of a step above a LUT or a lookup table. So when you're shooting raw video, you know how it has that real flat look? I used to just leave it basically flat because I liked the way it looked. And then I realized, oh, you can just make it look any way you want. You live and you learn. That was me 10 years ago. When I first got the Pocket Cinema camera, actually, the OG, didn't shoot raw because I didn't have a computer fast enough to handle it. And now I've got the fastest computer you can get. You know, there are plus sides to being old. And one of them is switching from the Mac to a PC to have a super power computer for editing video. And now I can just take those raw cinema camera files, and I like to see a lookup table is kind of like, you can think of it as like a filter, and they'll make them look like different film stocks and things of that nature. I use one on this. Right now you're watching a LUT, and it's the 5219 color negative film that I emulate on this here program. Nice and contrasty. I like it. Maybe here we'll do a little edit, and that will be what the camera looks like without any color or LUT. And then here will be, those are so I see on when I'm editing. This will be what the power grade looks like. I think it looks better on the old Blackmagic camera. And then now, boom, we're back to what we're usually looking at. You might, if you're like me, you might prefer the one we just saw, but hey, this is what we're doing here. You got to make the videos look different, right? Hey, there it is. And those are kind of my notes that I wanted to talk about here. We're going to go to some listener questions. We've got one here from Warner, who asks, why is the mix on voicemail different on Spotify? I swear it sounds better on YouTube. Great question. The answer, my mix is the one on YouTube. I prefer that one. And that was, earlier I was talking about when you work with a record label, they're going to have their decisions. They wanted their person to mix it. And I think it is a great mix, but that song in particular, that was one of out of all the music in that project that we made and all the videos I did, that might be my favorite. And that was done out of, we kind of ran out of money. They'll give you a budget usually for like an album cycle, you'll get a budget for the whole album. So you're like, all right, well, do we want to do like 10 kind of really low budget videos or one really big video and maybe 2 small-ish budget? You figure that out. And that kind of is where a lot of my job was like breaking that stuff down and being like, okay, do we go big? Or are we kind of more conservative and spread out that budget? And, the marketing materials and stuff are usually included within that. And for that one, there was like no money for it. I think it was under 10 grand. I know that, which, as you know, for music video, that's not a lot. And that's when the YouTube space was still open, which I still can't. That's so crazy to me that's no longer there. I basically lived there for a couple of years. I used those studios and the resources so much. And that was a song and a video, because at the time I was bringing in a lot of friends who were producers and for videos and music and DPs and just spending a lot of money. which is easy when you got a ton of it. And for whatever reason, at that point, for that budget, I think we were at the end of the deal and they just didn't want to give any more money, but we knew the song was going to come out. And I was definitely jazzed on that. Because that was one I just made in my bedroom. We didn't even bring that into a studio. That was completely just done on a laptop, and it was definitely like at a crossroads, for me with production where I was really starting to figure some things out that I thought sounded really cool. So gave that song a mix, shot that entire video with no help on set. I think we had hair and makeup, which you always need, and then the stylist had come along to bring like the looks and make sure that they looked good. But I had zero crew. That was me and a camera, and I think one light, maybe two lights, if I remember correctly. And I want to say I shot that on a red. Yeah. Which I typically don't like the look of, but it worked. Yeah, I shot that on a red with cinema primes, the Canons, the big boys. So it kind of has the look, but I was still figuring out the red pipeline. I don't shoot that anymore, but so anyway, Warner, I think the YouTube mix sounds better too. Slaps, but I pushed it really hard. And there's a couple different little production-y things in there that are different, but it is what it is. Here's one from Brent. Hi, Titanic. Hey, Brent. I'm going to Japan for the first time this year, and I know you have been there a lot. I wanted to ask, what was your favorite time in Japan? Very intriguing. Favorite time? I would say I've been to Japan, I think 9 times. I have to check my passport. I've probably been to England more. England and France, I think I've been to the most. It could be tied. There's one time that pops out in my mind. It was during Sakura, cherry blossoms. And I was on a picnic with some friends in Tokyo. It was in, I believe, Shinjuku. And it looked like it was snowing. And it was midday, and everyone goes out and has their picnics. And it looked like it was snowing. And I ate a bento. Other than that, I guess technically, did they ask about Tokyo or just Japan? Oh, Japan. I recorded an album the first time I went. And the producer of that, my friend Rio, it was like 3 weeks into production, and he was like, have you left Tokyo yet? I was like, no. He's like, do you want to go to Mount Fuji tomorrow or the next day or whatever it was? I had like 3 days left. I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. And he drove me to Mount Fuji. And we went up. You can drive up a considerable amount. We went all the way to the top, and there's a tiny little, on an active volcano, there's a tiny little tea shop. And we had tea on top of a volcano. And that was super cool. I remember sitting there just looking at the view. We were like above the clouds. And so it's just like you see the peak of Fuji-san and then clouds. And I was like, not going to forget this one. You just don't forget things like that. Let's see here. Listener question here from Cody. I really like the chord progression from Scorpio. I tried to figure out the progression, and I think I got it right, but I'm very confused on what's going on from a theory perspective. That's an easy one. Cody goes on here to talk about my problem is with the D sharp. Be an E flat there, I believe. But I have no idea where this comes from. Obviously, it sounds good, but I don't understand why. I did all the chords all in triads, which may be wrong, but it sounds fine to me. Yeah, that was all triads, if I remember correctly. I mean, let's see. F sharp and A makes me think it's a diminished chord. when you come in with D. Really appreciate an explanation of how you worked out this progression. I mean, that really all that was 4 chords that double time in the chorus. That's it. I think it's just 4 chords the whole song. You know, what you might be hearing, Cody, is in the melody. Maybe the melody is because I tend to do a lot of half steps, and the melody might be implying a diminished sound, but I don't think there's diminished chords in that song. But there's no guitar on that. I made that one with Johnny Danger, and we were just using software synthesizers. Although in the Johnny has a Voyager, and the Voyager is like under his desk, and so I was underneath his desk, just twisting knobs and getting the little freak out part. And the rest of it, it's just like Mellotron, strings, and synthesizers. Pretty much all software. I want to say maybe we used the Roland. Oh, I used to have one, and Johnny has one too, and I sold mine. What was that thing called? System 8. But I mean, the sessions for that song, I mean, we only spent a couple hours on that. I used to get so mad when I would hear like artists that I love, and in interviews there'd be like some sound that I was like trying to find and they can't remember. It's like, man, that song it happened so fast. One of my favorite things in a session ever was writing the third verse, because Johnny actually was like, should we put a third verse here? Because we had like the breakdown part. I was like, yeah, probably. I don't think I spent more than 2 minutes writing that last verse. I really think it's meant to be, because your astrology works perfectly with me. Maybe everything they say is true. The planets really do have power over you, baby. I was really happy with that and didn't even think about it. But thank you for the question, Cody, and I'll go look through. That's usually with my songs, I can tell you every single little bit and piece, but usually I spend a lot of time writing them. That one, I mean, it was a practice in simplicity. Because we had made, I think, maybe 14 or 15 songs in like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And that was just one of them. And I didn't even really think anything of it. And then I had showed a couple friends, and they're like, this is really good. You got to put this one out. I'm like, all right. So I put it out as a single, and now it's my most streamed song. Kind of weird. Let's see here. Robin has a question about genre jumping. I disagree. Does it seemingly with pure pop and metalcore-ish as the poles appearing suddenly, where a lot of older bands would use funk metal as the backbone of bridging sections. Mostly, I'm thinking Mr. Bungle. Oh, yeah, they were a reference on that album. And the Idiot Flesh-related bands. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, listen to The Nothing Show by Idiot Flesh. The Nothing Show. It was made using Cool Edit Pro. Wow. I don't think I've heard that, Robin, so I'm going to check it out. Let's see. Where is the question? What happens on I Disagree reminds me of the Mr. Bungle type thing. Some of it reminds me of They Might Be Giants, particularly Fingertips from Apollo 11. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these bands if you have any. If you don't, what were the production elements on I Disagree meant for live performance or playback? Haha. I think you know the answer there, Robin. It's a rough question, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure I know the answer. You do, Robin. Idiot Flesh, Mr. Bungle, and They Might Be Giants can replicate these jumps live to varying degrees of success. Here we go. There are some amazing musicians on that record, and yourself included. Is it real live? I disagree. Real live? Absolutely not. No. Chris Criati and I, the ongoing joke while making that entire thing is, and we would laugh consistently in the studio, and Zach as well, who was engineering and producing with us. We would laugh because we knew you couldn't do it live. That album is impossible. We made it impossible to play live. So it's backing tracks. And when I was touring on it, I did one tour on that album. And the way you kind of go about doing something like that is everyone has to have clicks in their ear because there were just so many tempo jumps all over the place. And we would have little count ins because there'd be these breaks where there's nothing, well, no drums. And so in my ear, I'd get 4, 3, 2, 1, and it was a very procedural and kind of mathematic way of performing, which I like to groove. You know that about me. So I did not enjoy myself at all because it was not made to be performed live, and I didn't anticipate it doing. We knew it was good. We knew, and I remember when we finished it, and for me, it was like, I think probably for both of us, but for me, certainly that was the end of the era. We knew we were burned out from doing the videos. We never fought or anything like that, but it was, they always say creative differences. I wanted to lean more in. At that time, I was just starting. I was writing country songs, and that whole album was just on the drive. I'd be driving to the studio and I'd be listening to $3 Bill Y'all, Limp Bizkit. I'd be listening to Follow the Leader and Issues by Korn, and I'd be listening to Mechanical Animals by Manson. And I was actually listening to a bit of Downward Spiral, Nine Inch Nails, and that's just what I was into at the time. And I still love that stuff, but I'm not really listening to it anymore. And the things that you listen to, or at least for me, when I write and record music, that is kind of that we're a product of our own environment. And at that time, I had never listened to nu metal as an adult, and I just really got into the production, and I was like, how do you do that? And I knew I wanted it to sound heavy, and so that's why I pushed so hard for Zach Cervini to be on the production team for that, because he was making and continues to make some of the heaviest stuff I've ever heard. And after doing all these like pop sessions, I just thought a heavy, really heavy sound was a cool creative move. And then to me, that was going to be the end of it. And then my plan was to make a full-blown Nashville country album after I Disagree. But hey, it's and that's why I made Texas Dream. That was just the thing I was on to next. And creative differences, that whole thing, and the rest, I think, of the brand new team, who I didn't know anyone on this new team that they had hired. And full disclosure, didn't really get along. I didn't really like them. And I'm sure they're great people, but in my experience, they're frauds. And I just don't. I'm making a pop punk album right now with Caleb, and I'll just say this. Well, emo, I guess it is. The one band that never comes up in the hundreds of bands and songs that we've shared, the one band that never comes up is Good Charlotte. Didn't like them when I was a kid. Didn't like them when I was working with them. Sorry, guys. Shots fired. But if for some reason one of them sees it, you're a fraud. And look what I did, and look what you're doing. Too much? Maybe. But thank you for the question, Robin. It's all tracks live. And let's take one more. Let's see here. We will take one from Anonymous. Hi, Titanic. I'm I'm in an effed up situation, and I think you might be able to give me some advice. Hopefully. Sum up a long story. I was in a band with someone I was dating, and we broke up. Hey, we're just on a roll today, aren't we? I picked these at random, by the way. The worst part about it is now our friend group has been divided. That sucks. I'm trying my best to be the bigger person, but now I have to defend myself against rumors and lies, things she's saying about me. I know you've been through something similar. What advice do you have? Because it is getting out of hand. If I had a time machine, I don't know if you're going through like a public thing. It was public for me. If I had a time machine, I would have just screenshotted everything. Immediate, the day, the moment anything came out that made me look bad, and I would have just given it the context and be like, well, yeah, it definitely looks bad the way it's presented, but here's, as I said previously, scroll up 3 inches above where everything's happy-go-lucky and you're laughing. They're begging you to come over and please, I need you, I love you, that kind of thing. And then scroll down a little further past the thing that appears bad, and then see the part immediately that's been cropped out, from what they screenshotted, that shows the hee 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 ha ha. That's like, can you go buy me snacks? Are you coming over again tonight? I still love you. I'll always love you. That kind of stuff. We're saying this allegedly. I'm making everything up here. None of this is real. Everything in this program is alleged and not real. I am lying. But if I was telling the truth, that's probably what I would say, but I'm not. And really, if I were you, Anonymous, I would probably take every full transcripts of every text you've ever sent between this person and email, any written correspondence you have, and I would feed it into an AI, and ask Chat GPT or whatever and say, what elements of this could be used against me, and then see what it says. And then, because you're not going to be able to dissociate from yourself enough to see it objectively. So that's what's great about an AI. It's pretty much fully objective, mostly, to at least get a breakdown of what basically could be used against you. And then you can go point by point and at least have that ready. Because I was completely blindsided, in both of my run-ins with, being publicly shamed, which, by the way, immediately reads, so you've been publicly shamed. It's amazing. That was my, that got me through it, basically. And, just immediately, you got to prepare yourself for something like that, because I, in a million years, never thought that could or would happen to me. But people have their reasons for wanting to try and ruin someone's life. And you may think that you were doing your best. Because if you're in a project together, it never works. It doesn't work. And I think if going forward you are gonna have a creative relationship with someone, just let it be for fun. Don't try to make money with it. And if it makes money, great. Have it be I don't know, I call it a diaper fund. I don't know if you have kids, but yeah, that's a real tricky one. And it's kind of a part of why I started Titanic Talks to begin with. I was getting so many people asking me questions about like what happened. And it's like, well, I'm not gonna I feel like I kind of missed the boat, and technically I don't think it would help anyone to it's not a good look. But if I can come on here and be like, here are my philosophies on life. This is 46 episodes here, all over an hour long. 46 hours for you, the viewer, and I'm guessing enjoyer of music and movies I've made, to allow you a different perspective. And as I've said from the jump, episode 1 of this Titanic Talk series, I know I'm not a perfect person. And I know I've got a long way to go and a lot of growing to do and learning to do. And if I at least put my best foot forward and tell the truth, that helps me sleep at night. And after all of the bashing my head against the wall and the therapy and getting on and off of medications and drinking myself half to death and coping with it in so many ways, and then finally coming out of that and coming up for a breath of fresh air. That's what my brother and I always say. What a breath of fresh air. Coming up, a fresh of breath air, rather. It probably wasn't funny a second ago. Coming up for a fresh of breath air. And looking around and being like, hey, I'm still here. It's all good. If people want to think that about me, they're going to. I'm not going to change their minds. But for the people who maybe felt like some of the situations I've been in maybe felt a little bit fishy, I didn't have this before. I didn't have, and it was because, and just like what I learned in therapy, the reason I couldn't love myself is because I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, and I didn't love myself, and I didn't trust myself, and I didn't believe in myself. But the first thing out of those three is I learned to believe in myself, and music was the medicine for me, because I thought, hey, maybe I'm not good enough. And, I just thought everyone was just going to laugh at me and then forget about me. And over the years, getting out of LA was a big move, literally. But slowly but surely, I wrote more songs. I got better with camera stuff. Suddenly I was away from the vampires and around people who, luckily I didn't really lose anyone. I lost like 2 friends in life, outside of friends who passed away. But and it's crazy now to sit back and look, another trip around the sun, another year. And every day I can wake up and be thankful. I never had that. I did not have that until very recently. And certainly having a family, boy, that, well, I always had a family, but my own family, little baby with a very, very loving mother, it is so much better than the thing that I thought I needed. Because the things that we think we need very often are so far away from the truth because we're running away from who we actually need to be. And I believe that. I thought I needed to be this recognized, brilliant director and songwriter, musician, whatever. And then, family stuff will come after that. That's how I thought. It's like, no, I need to be the best version of myself. And I found the best version of myself is one who is a father and a partner and a much better son, sober, and a lot happier. So I guess we'll end it there. Wish it was a little more jovial or happy. But it is happy. Sometimes, there's happy tears. And fortunately, I've been enjoying a lot of those recently. I can hear my little man playing in the other room. So I'm going to go play with my little buddy, spend the rest of the day here with my family. I do have some phone calls I missed. So actually, I'm going to do some work first and then we'll get back to that. But thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thanks everyone for the birthday wishes. And yeah, just thank you. God bless all of you. And we'll see you next week.